Hello and welcome. You're watching Eye on Africa and I'm Clarisse Fortuné. These are the headlines. Horrific and devastating. Kenyan President Ruto describes the fire that killed at least 18 children in a school dormitory. 70 are still missing. Algeria set to vote in an election widely expected to give incumbent president a second term. Abdelmadjid Tebboune was elected 5 years ago with record abstention and is hoping this time around we'll see higher turnout. Paris is hosting the African Diaspora International Film Festival. Director Nadia Fares explores what it is to be a woman in Egypt throughout generations. A horrific and devastating fire. These are the words of Kenyan President William Ruto following the tragedy that struck a school in Nyeri County. At least 17 children died between Thursday night and Friday morning. 70 kids are still unaccounted for, and parents are in shock. Clémence Valère has the story.
Grief and shock loom amongst the parents and relatives of the Endarasha school children as they wait anxiously to hear about the fates of their loved ones. According to the Kenyan police, a fire broke out around midnight on Thursday in one of the school dorms, which housed 156 boys between the ages of 9 and 14. As search and rescue continue their operations, dozens of children are still unaccounted for.
We saw several children in there that had been burnt. I was just lucky to save one of them, but I heard later he died. It was very troubling and sad tragedy.
I found mine, but we are still waiting for my neighbors' and friends' children. We're hopeful we'll find them.
Located in a semi-rural area some 150 kilometers north of the capital Nairobi, the Endarasha school was attended by over 800 pupils. Some of the survivors were still being rescued during the day on Friday, and the Kenyan Secretary for the Interior called on any who gave refuge to the children to bring them back to the authorities.
Many children managed to jump out and get to safety, but we don't know how many were successful. The information we have is that there are others within the community. The government is urging anyone who took in any of these children to bring them here in the hands of government officers so that they can get medical help and counselling.
Police have launched an investigation into the origins of the fire. However, the Kenyan Gender and Equality Commission claims that the dormitory was overcrowded and in violation of safety regulations.
Around 24 million Algerians are set to head to the polls on Saturday for a vote in which some say incumbent President Abdelmadjid Tebboune is poised to win a second term. Jenny Shin.
It's an election where the youth vote will be crucial. Young people make up more than half of Algeria's population of 45 million, and many are anxious for change.
Whether it's these elections or the last ones in 2019, it's really the same thing. Nothing has changed. Promises are made during the campaign, but then we discover they're just lies.
Incumbent President Abdelmadjid Tebboune only faces two challenges: centrist Abdoulaye Hassani Sharif and Youssef Aouchiche, a former journalist running for a centre-left opposition party. Tebboune was elected in 2019 amid a meagre turnout of around 40% following Iraq pro-democracy protests, a movement which has since waned. But electoral authorities this year are hoping for more people to head to the polls.
The real issue will be the turnout, popular support. Will Algerians head to the polls in large numbers in this election?
Although Algeria's economy has grown at an annual rate of around 4% over the past 2 years, it remains heavily dependent on oil and gas. Today it stands as Africa's third largest economy, but many voters say plenty of issues still need to be addressed, notably high youth unemployment in the country, where 1 in 3 young people are out of work.
Paris wants to honor the late Ugandan Olympic runner Rebecca Cheptegei by naming a sports venue after her. The proposal was announced by City Mayor Anne Hidalgo. Cheptegei died from complications after being set on fire by a former boyfriend. She was 33 and had just competed in a women's marathon at the Paris Olympic Games less than a month ago. Fellow athletes and Kenyans are struggling to come to terms with her killing.
It's a bit hurting. Last month, she was participating in Olympics, and then in less than 1 month, we found the news that she's dead. And he was ready to take on New York City Marathon on November. So it has been hard for us.
She's an icon. Young girls were looking up to her and actually emulate or walk into her steps. Now they'll actually have that fear that if I'm an athlete like her, at the end of the day, maybe my boyfriend will kill me. Is it because of the money, or is it jealousy, or is it the exposure for women?
In Paris, which is currently holding the African Diaspora International Film Festival. Among the film selection, there's the documentary Big Little Women. 3 generations of women challenge a patriarchal society across 75 years of history in Egypt and Switzerland. Let's get a taste.
In Switzerland, Mom wanted to be free. She paid dearly. Against all odds, Mom chose an African, an Egyptian. You, Dad, my Baba. You didn't care about conventions, Dad. How many times did you take me to cafes? The only woman among men?
And here with me is the director, Nadia Fares. Nadia Fares, I must tell you, I really enjoyed watching your documentary. Your films, I think, shows a layer of different women. There's not one generation, there's not one definition of being a woman in Egypt. They all have different approach of their own society. One of the strong characters of your film is Nawal El-Saadawi, and she was a doctor, a writer, and a feminist. And she was from the old generation, and she grew up under the rule of King Farouk. Please remind us how it was back then to be a woman.
Well, Nawal El-Saadawi, what's so interesting about her is that she went from King Farouk to the president of today, El-Sisi. So she has seen all the different struggles of women. So already during King Farouk, the women were demonstrating in the streets for their rights. And under Nasser, they got the voting rights in order to vote. So there is progress and there is regression too, because during Sadat, as Nawal says, there was a big regression because the Muslim Brotherhood came into the game. So it's all about the strength and the courage of the women, but it's always sometimes regression and progression. It's a journey. And
what for me was fascinating about her, particularly that during King Farouk, being a woman was very hard when you were the daughter in a family, and yet she manages to do all these things, becoming a very famous writer, a famous doctor, and she managed to go through all the challenges that were put upon her.
Yes, she had a very strong will. She's a very strong character, as you could see in the film. I mean, the first scene, she's basically, telling me that, when I tell her, please put your handkerchief on the side because we want to talk. And she's like, no,
and she said, don't tell me what to do.
Don't tell me what to do. This is freedom. The handkerchief is freedom. So she has a very strong character and a strong will.
And so she's from the old generation. And also I was surprised to see the current generations. I saw there was this group of women. They all want to study. They want to have a master's degree. They don't want to be married with someone they didn't choose.
Yes.
And then we talk about female genital mutilation.
Yes.
And then they say, oh, well, that's tradition.
Yes.
So, and I even quote, even over time, we'll continue to do the same thing. It's true that times have changed. People have changed their thinking too, but these haven't changed. No, not for the ignorant or the educated.
Yes.
How is that possible? The tradition still prevails.
This is the south of Egypt. So Egypt is a very complex society because it depends what class and where what city you live and if you live in the countryside or the city. So this particular example is in the south of Egypt, and the south of Egypt is very traditional. So these young women, they have the consciousness, but on the other hand, they have this attachment to the tradition. So this contradiction I thought it's really interesting, because the young generation that you see here on the image in the city, they are of course against
the mutilation.
Yes, the mutilation, and they are not having the existence.
So it's another layer of modernism. You have people in the countryside which they still want to be. I don't want
they
to say,
follow
they follow the tradition, but also they want, in a way, be emancipated, if I can use that word.
Yes.
So it must be hard for them to navigate between different worlds.
Yes, it is hard. But on the other hand, the young generation in the city, it's much more clear for them, because they would never accept that.
Thank you very much, Nadia Fares. I encourage everyone to go watch The Big Little Woman. Thank you very much. And that's how we end our edition of Eye on Africa. Thank you for watching.